What if Ash was born in Johto, Part 2? With Ash has waken up, seeing that Evie snuggling up to him as he feels something red hot on his back. As he turns, as he sees a slugman, as he wraps them in a hug. As when he breaks out the cave, he sneakily sneak casts for sleeping on it. As he looks over the Johto region, and as he has a pretty good view until how far his eyes can go. As he's excited for his journey with all his friends, as he thought nothing and no one can break us apart. As he makes his way down to the first route, and he really thinks he barely made any ground on the first day. As he's wondering how his two friends are doing, Gold and Crystal, as and decides to see if the professor's in at his second kind of lab. As he walks in the door, he sees Crystal, Professor Oak and Professor Elm, with Crystal having an egg with one of the blue or red stripes on the egg being yellow. As we'll walk up and say hi to them, with her Professor Elm stolen Ash, Crystal slapping Ash, as hers Professor Oak would just laugh at this, with Ash rubbing his cheek where Crystal slapped him. He asked what was that for, as Crystal would say, "You stared at me, Ash. You literally ran out without any obedient Pokemon, and as you come back here acting like everything's okay." With Ash saying, "Alright, I know. As Professor Elm, whom will say to Ash, "Is Evie okay?" With Evie hopping onto Ash's head, he'd taken a nice seat on it. As Professor Elm would just sigh out of relief, seeing that his prized Pokemon's okay. As Professor Elm would say, "One more mess up like that, Ash, I'm taking that starter away from you." With Ash was saying, "Alright then." As after a few hours of making sure that Ash is okay and his Pokemon, Ash and Crystal decide to start looking for Gold. As where he'll most likely be is probably in a forest, because that's where probably thieves will go. With Ash he's hearing some trees falling down, seeing like wild Pokemon escaping. As we cut to Silver, as he starts yelling at the Pokemon thief to stop, as the Pokemon thief was sending out his Totodile, as he'll call for a water gun and going straight into Gold's face, making him losing him. As he looks at her Cyndaquil's Pokeball, as he looks to a nearby Pokemon Center, as he'll say, "Sorry about hurting you before we even met." With Silver healing his Pokemon, as he starts seeing like people running in with injured Pokemon, with Silver asking what's going on, with them saying that we just found all these injured Pokemon escaping from the forest. As with Silver having a gut feeling that Ash and Crystal are probably in there, so before even meeting in Cyndaquil, he puts it on his head as he'll start running, seeing a lot of injured Pokemon, as he sees a very, very injured Hoothoot. As he goes to pet it on its head, saying that it'll all be okay. I will help you, okay? He'll catch the injured Hoothoot, as he'll make his way deeper in the forest, as he sees a Mareep, but it's not like any Mareep he ever seen before. It's a weirdly coloured Mareep, as it's starting to spit out flames. As with Gold, seeing this as very weird, he decides to catch it and like video call a professor about it. As with Silver putting the Johto and Reap's Pokeball in the safe place, as he tells Cyndaquil, sorry about getting you hurt and making you run about all day yesterday. I was just trying to get my friend to starter back. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me, as he'll pull out some fire type specialty food. As with Cyndaquil, not really sure if he should really accept this, as Silver would just say, if you want, I can give you back to the professor. With Cyndaquil seeing this as a good enough response, he goes and hugs Gold, as Gold will hug him back. As with the flames not really hurting Gold, they make their way deep inside the forest, seeing Ash and Crystal, but you fighting a Hoppy. But you're probably wondering, how did Ash and Crystal get there? So how about we see then? With Ash and Crystal, who will keep on learning, see more injured Pokemon, and as he sees an oddly coloured Mareep, he trying to fight the raging Pokemon, as it gets hit by a water pulse by a Hoppid looking Pokemon, and as Ash, he has enough of seeing more injured Pokemon, and as when the oddly coloured Mareep will run away, a Razor Leaf will cut down the tree, trapping it. With Ash being infuriated, he sends out Eevee and calls for a quick attack. Quick attack rushing in and hitting Hoppid as it strikes back even harder. With Ash and Eevee both knowing that this battle will take forever if they keep acting like this. So with Ash was calling for a move which Crystal didn't know that Eevee he could learn. Volt Tackle, with Volt Tackle rushing in, slamming right into Hoppid, as what happens next is quite shocking. Eevee, his first stats are real pointy, as Ash will call for another Volt Tackle, as he'll keep calling for Volt Tackle until Eevee faints with a transformation and going away, with Crystal knowing that. How is this Eevee capable to that? I know it has a resemblance of a Jolteon, but how could it? As just its Eevee phase, as he snaps back to reality, as she hears Ash saying, "Crystal, help me!" He tries to take down this Hoppy with Slugma, looking like he's getting pretty beaten up, and she'll send out her Chikorita. With Chikorita firing off a Razor Leaf, as Hoppy will just strike back even harder with its own Razor Leaf, with Ash throwing a Pokeball, adding Hoppy to his team, as both Ash and Crystal who are worried about this, as that's when they see Gold rushing towards them, as that's where we're going to end off today's part.